Hey, this is Jose Galison on No Way Jose on the Liberty Movement YouTube channel. Today our guest is Molly Smash, aka Chase to Cash. I don't really know if that's pronouncing it correctly or not.
Close enough, Tkach.
Yeah. Tkach. Okay, yeah, I never would have guessed that. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let you give your quick introduction of yourself to the audience. That way they can know who you are. You can probably do more justice to it than I can.
Well, where do I start? I am a dominatrix and a porn star, a sex workers' rights advocate, and I'm also the chair of the Libertarian Party of Orleans County and previously the state committee member for the LANY. Ran for legislature last year and think I'm about to get a spot on my town board, so...
That's interesting for sure. For this episode, I kind of gathered a lot of questions from a bunch of Facebook groups and other social media groups. The one thing I said is we're going to keep it respectful. We're not going to go too crazy. Maybe if I had a Patreon or something like that, I'd use it as extra content, for people who are interested in that. But I don't. If that's something you're interested in, let me know. I may have Chase on another time.
Yeah.
Do you prefer Chase or Molly? First off,
Either Chase is fine.
Okay. All right. So the one thing I did tell him that it's like, no jokes, like the biggest thing you ever put in your butthole or something like that. So we'll go ahead and get started on the questions. Of course, since I asked that, the first question I got was, "What's the second biggest thing you put in your butthole?" Obviously, we're not gonna do that. Like I said, if I had like a special content, we maybe we'd do that. But I mean, that's not really the angle I'm trying to go at. So first off, how did you learn what a libertarian? Or no, actually, what got you into sex work?
So I grew up in Florida, and there's the swamps of Florida, and then there's South Florida, which are two very different things. And when I was 18, like freshly 18, 3 days after my 18th birthday, I was already living in a spot called Fort Lauderdale. And it's all kind of about who you know. And I just so happened to be living in a house full of porn stars. It's a lot that worked up to that point, but I was living in a house full of porn stars, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. So the porn manager who also lived there was like, okay, I could probably book you a spot with FA. And so that was my first gig, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go hard. I don't know if anybody's seen my first video that I did, and it was pretty out there. And it kind of just took off from there. So...
Well, that's a little kind of interesting how you end up in a house full of porn stars, but
yeah, it's just Florida. Like, you could end up anywhere doing anything in Florida. It's really not out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I live in Florida. I mean, I'm sure people have heard other ones. I'm not originally from here, but I live here, so I get what you're getting at. It is an eclectic area.
Yeah.
So one question I had, this is actually from me. How has COVID affected your work? I'm assuming it's been booming.
To be honest, okay, so I think I made like a whole video on this. So everybody's like, when COVID first started, like the businesses were all applying for SBA loans. And part of that is strip clubs and any other business that is about sex work. They don't qualify for SBA loans. So all the strip clubs have been suffering a lot. I'm not a stripper, so that didn't affect me personally, but of course a lot of my friends are. So that sucks for them. And because everybody is kind of going broke, they don't really have money to tip on the webcamming websites or money to purchase videos on Pornhub, so it's actually gone down a lot. And it's not just the online stuff. So my dominatrix stuff is in person. So again, people were worried about catching the virus when it first came out, and they were all terrified of it. And I get it, I understand. So people were canceling appointments left and right. Domination is not a necessity for a lot of people, so they kind of just had to cut their loss with that. Even my most, I guess you would say, wealthy clients were even like, I can't afford this right now. And that was surprising to me. So it's actually not that great right now.
Oh, that's actually kind of surprising. I guess most people would assume just people are more virtual, essentially.
Yeah.
But I guess, I mean, with porn and stuff, there's so much free alternatives. And so this is essentially, I could see how luxury items, which is essentially what porn or like sex work kind of is in a lot of ways, would kind of fall by the wayside. So I guess that makes sense. I never thought of it that way. I would have assumed it was the the other. But I guess it makes sense when you're in a business that has a lot of free alternatives that people would turn to those instead of, the paying during these trying times.
Well, it is something that a lot of people did turn to. Like, I know that a lot of people turn to OnlyFans. I don't use OnlyFans, I use AVN. But because a lot of people are low on money, they have, their second job is OnlyFans. And it's unfortunate that it's at the same time that people just can't afford to pay for OnlyFans right now. Like, that is luxury. So it goes hand in hand. But it has opened up the door to a lot of people recognizing the importance of sex work and why it is a great thing to fall on when there isn't really anything left, when all the businesses are closed and it's the one thing that you have control over. And there's still a need for it regardless at any time, whatever anybody's going through, but not as much as there usually is.
It's a pretty basic biological thing.
Yeah.
It's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, the oldest profession for a reason.
Yeah, so. Exactly. I mean, so next question. How did you learn what a libertarian was and what made you one? So essentially this encapsulates what your philosophical journey was, essentially.
Yeah, so I grew up with libertarian parents, and I didn't find that out until 3 or 4 years ago. Actually, I had a conversation with my dad, and I always thought that he was a Republican. I was originally registered as a Republican, even though I didn't have half of my views were not Republican views. And I kind of sat down, I talked with him one day, and I was like, okay, why do you call yourself a Republican if you're very clearly not a Republican? Like, there's so many views, like he's pro-choice and just other things here and there, like pro-drug decriminalization, and never had a problem with me being a sex worker ever. Like, he was very accepting of that. So he's like, well, I'm actually something called a libertarian. And one of his employees out of his business was, I don't know if he was one of the chairs in Seminole County, or I don't know what area it was, but he's very involved in its local chapter. And so he had me contact him. He explained to me like everything about libertarianism, everything about libertarianism, and that's how I got into it.
That's interesting. Not a lot of people end up with libertarian parents. It's kind of a rarity. Like, I know I kind of came sort of from the right. My parents were pretty generic, centrist conservatives.
Yeah.
So, and that seems to be the story for a lot of people. That's oh shit, gotta bring this up. So next question. One thing this is kind of a new flashy thing these days is agorism, or agorism, however you pronounce it. I always forget which way is right. Which essentially is, funny enough, you say agorism, and it's kind of a fancy way of saying tax evasion, which, I mean, it's a whole lot more than that. You can call it agoristic opportunities. Thing I'm getting at is what do you see in this industry so far as like how that works? Because I'm sure there are probably some aspects of sex work where it is like they do definitely keep an eye on that, and then probably some that aren't. Probably, I'm assuming, depends if you work with established companies. Which, I mean, I don't think most people even understand the ins and outs. I know I don't. I mean, the ins and outs.
So online sex work, as for OnlyFans or like My Free Cams or any of them that like you're broadcasting yourself or uploading content on the internet, going through these professional websites, they take out the taxes for you, and at the end of the year, you file your 1099.
Oh, that's kind of shitty.
You own your, if you own your business, you have to file your own taxes. Most sex workers, like the professional ones, they do file taxes. Of course, with me, I also file taxes. Unfortunately, that fucking sucks, but I had to file taxes. The ones that I would say might not would be survival sex workers. So the people that are living in really, really low income communities, they're doing full service sex work, so prostitution. And, they might not even know anything about paying taxes or
streetwalkers.
So, and when it comes down to it, none of us should be paying taxes, is the truth. But, if it's actually beneficial, while you do have to pay taxes, is, the taxes that I pay at the end of the year, I end up getting back and paying for my giant propane bill. So,
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, too, like you say, they claim, but I know, like, part of, like, say, with agorism is it's not necessarily, people think of it, and it's like, they think black and white, but then anyone who knows about agorism knows there's the gray. So, like, because they talk about black markets, white markets, and gray markets. Essentially, the idea being, say, if you equate it to taxes, because agorism is way more than just tax evasion. I mean, I was kind of joking earlier, being a little facetious. But, one way to look at it is instead of like, people look at it as like black and white, like I said. So it's not as simple as do I claim or do I not. a real algorithm will kind of hedge their bets. They may claim some of them, and
Yeah.
you know,
Well, in
like
New York State, you
yeah,
can have up to $14,000 in gifts. So
yeah,
a lot of them, there's loopholes for everything. Or
exactly.
instead of like selling a video for money, you would sell it for a new set of
Mhm.
stilettos, or just whatever they choose to accept for it. Or I've actually gotten confused in the age of Cash App.
Yeah.
That's been hard for me to do my taxes like properly. I mean, I've been trying to manage it as much as I can, but that's difficult for me.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense that some of those would track it. It is also it's all online, so it's kind of like everything you do is tracked. So it is like you kind of can weasel out of it only so much.
Yeah.
I mean that might be one advantage for crypto. For I don't know how much you guys are able to go in crypto because it is like a you play that game and now you can go into more of the agoristic type stuff where it's like they don't have as much ability to follow your shit.
So I have a bad story with crypto. And I think just because of this, like, it makes me never want to get into it again. But for one, Pornhub just started only accepting crypto, so that's a decent thing. And when I was in Florida, this is like when crypto first started getting popular. I had friends that were getting into it, and I ended up buying $150 worth of crypto in, I think, 2013, and I just blew it. And I'm just like, I can be rich right now. Like, you have no idea. So that's my, like, every time I think of crypto, I just think of how quickly I just fucked up and just blew that crypto so quickly.
That's kind of cool. I didn't know Pornhub was doing that where they only take crypto now.
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of cool. And then, like I said, that does allow more agoristic opportunity. Like you'd kind of, like I was saying before, you'd kind of be an idiot not to claim anything because I mean, to some extent, the state knows you are doing it. So,
Yeah.
but it's a matter of Konkin would always talk about the Samuel Edward Konkin would always talk about like you kind of measure like what is the pros and cons. So like if there's say you're making $100,000 going through the gray market of whatever it is you're doing, whether it's like evading taxes or whatever, if you're only going to get hit with possibly a $5,000 fine, it's kind of like, well, you came out on top. So
Yeah.
like it's kind of about knowing what the penalties are going to be. If it's just as simple as you might get hit, you kind of like figure out you play the odds and to an extent, but intelligently. Yeah.
You push your limits and see what you can get away with. That's
exactly. It's and sometimes it helps to just know the system and that kind of stuff. One thing I want to get into, someone had this question: your thoughts on polyamory, and then I kind of want to get into on the individual and the societal because this is what I've kind of like racked my head on. Because like for me personally, I can understand like individually, I don't give a fuck. And obviously, like whenever I'm talking here, I'm not saying any time anyone should ever be forced through like government or anything to do anything. But I can see how on a societal level, polyamory may not be something that technically should be encouraged. Because I can understand biologically speaking why we've ended up the way we are. Because there's the children take a lot of effort. So it's like on a societal level, if this was something that was like huge, but like at the same time, I don't really give a fuck. So I don't know. It is a toss up. But I can see how people do have a point. Some of the some conservative types, the right-leaning libertarians do have a point in that, maybe we shouldn't encourage this. Obviously, no one, if you're on the libertarian side of things, ever really saying we should have the government dictate one way or the other. But they're just saying, this is why we were talking before, where I kind of like, the idea of HOPA, where you would have, private property would dictate where people go, and you'd have areas where people who think more that way and people who think more this way would end up, and kind of the idea of the free market, would win out. Maybe it's kind of one of those things where like we'll never really know. Like you assume that maybe it wouldn't work, and then like say like polyamory, and say if like HOPA's free society did end up happening, and you end up with like a section where they are debaucherous and all that shit. Like who knows? Maybe it works just fine. But I mean,
well,
like
I
from
think
what
of
we've
this
seen.
I think of this in a few different ways. So I have been poly before, and it was nice actually. It worked out really well. It just at the time I was still going through my separation, so it just wasn't the right time for me mentally to be dealing with that. But obviously the famous phrase, it takes a tribe to raise kids. It does. It's very stressful, and from a financial standpoint, it was wonderful. We had 3 incomes in the house instead of just 2 or just 1. I have no problem with it. I mean, government being involved in marriage, that's a whole nother thing.
I'd say we both think it shouldn't, period. But now
Yeah,
whether you think it
absolutely.
should
I'm
be,
going through a divorce right
yeah.
now. Absolutely. I don't want to pay for
But,
this. I really
yeah.
don't. So I
So
understand.
we're more talking like social side of things on like whether, you know, like just general thoughts, you know, how culture should manifest, or if it should just be one of those things that like, you know, whatever, do whatever you want. Like,
Well, if you see it as like the relationship is the problem, then that's one thing. But we also look in other countries like Russia and Ukraine, like Eastern European countries where there's, you know, a mother and a father also living with the grandmother and the aunt. And those families are so much close knit and they care for each other. And you come here and you see that parents are kicking their kids out at 18 years old and they're like, you're not responsible, or we're not responsible for you anymore. And it's a total drop off. And that's a huge difference. Like, so I see that families are much more protective of each other when they're all living together, and that could be like an argument for the success of a possible polyamory family. It just all depends.
yeah, I mean, I do think like there is something to why we have kind of naturally manifested into monogamous relationships. That's why I say like maybe on a societal level it wouldn't, but I do think at the same time like there are certain things where I think there's probably like a jealousy thing people have to get over,
Yes,
and stuff like that. And
communication is so important. Open communication. If you don't have that and you're not honest with your partners, then it's never going to work. It's the same thing with dating a sex worker.
Which is, that's what I'm saying, like on a societal level is tricky. But I can see how for individuals at work, I've been married for almost 10 years. Me and my wife, like, I wouldn't really, I mean, don't get me wrong. If, like, she was like, go ahead, go get some strange, I'd be like, cool. I mean, for one, I probably wouldn't just because I don't have that kind of time because we have 2 kids.
And it's hard to find.
Yeah, it's hard to find. But I would never want, like, a second woman in the house that just was live-in. I mean, maybe call me sexist, whatever, but it's like I can only deal with one of my wife. So, I mean, I love her, but I can only do one. I mean, maybe it's different on the other flip side with women and maybe down for having 2 guys. I know I wouldn't be cool with it. But, you know, like, I could see how it worked for some people and some people it wouldn't. And I think it's a matter of just like you said, communication. So I think like there's no reason why it can't work on an individual level. It's just a matter of whether it would work societal. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Like that's kind of why there's a big part of like why, you know.
Well, people thought that way about having 2 dads and 2 moms, and they're like, "Well, how could this work?" Well, it works really good, actually. So, I mean, you see gay parents with their kids, and their kids are like super spoiled, very well behaved, and like going to the best schools, like, you know.
And even if it didn't, which I'm not saying it does, even if it didn't somehow work, it's still like that doesn't mean you get to institute violence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I feel like then it would kind of almost. In a sense, even though it's not an economic thing, it would kind of, in a sense, work itself out in a way.
Yeah.
You know, if it was actually like a negative, you know, societal, I think it would, over time, it would weed itself out. Which is kind of why I think liberty is key. Because if that was the case, we would have more ability to do stuff like that. You wouldn't have these. For one, like, yeah, you're only like legally allowed to marry one person. So like maybe there are people out there who want to marry more.
I think except in Utah. I think polyamory is acceptable in Utah. I'm not sure now, but
I mean, either way, it's like I don't even really get why. I mean, I've always joked like, why do we get the government involved?
I don't even know how guys get like 6 wives. I've been trying to find just like one girl to have a threesome with me and my fiance, and I'm like, I've been struggling with even that. So I don't know how anybody can find 6 wives, man. Like, yeah, must be really good.
My wife used to watch sometimes. I forget the name of the show, but it was the guy who had like he was like Mormon, had like multiple wives.
Sister wives, something like that.
I just remember watching that and just be like, oh my god, that guy has an awful life. Like it was just his like, because I feel like everybody assumes have multiple wives. Like they'd be like, like, well, Sarah's being a bitch, so I'm gonna go hang out with Ashley. It's like, no, I feel like women are a little more cliquey, so you're just gonna end up with them all mad at you.
Ostracized by all of them.
And that's kind of what would usually happen in the show, is when one was mad, that they would all be mad at him, and he was just kind of this sad human being that just is always just, doesn't know why they're mad at him.
If he wants to torture himself, that's his right.
Yeah, I mean, if that's your thing, whatever. I mean, if you just love misery. But, like, I don't know. But, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, oh, yeah, and I'm kind of talking to you. You perform with your boyfriend, right? I don't know if that's or if it was your husband that you were speaking of, they were going through divorce or not, because so I did my research, which means I did watch some porn. But
I was married for 4 years, and I was married to like a very socially conservative Russian guy, so he was not into the whole sex work thing. So once I got separated, I was I was out there. So yeah, I ended up meeting my fiance, and it's okay. He's okay with me talking about this part. He was a virgin when I met him. And, you know, me being a porn star, he was a virgin. We're just like, yeah, it's gonna work perfectly, right? And so, like, after the first couple weeks, I was like, do you want to start making some videos with me? And yeah, he's doing great with it.
He's a virgin, and now he's doing porn.
Yeah. And I'm still the only person he slept with, which is great. So it's not like I have to go out and get tested with it like a million times because he's the only person that I make videos with. So
okay, well, it kind of goes into what my next point was going to be. I was going to go into that, like, because we kind of were touching the poly thing. I didn't know if, like, you know, with the boyfriend, if that was like a thing, but, you know, I mean, whatever.
Oh no, when I first met him, I was already still dating somebody. So that was my first poly experience. And yeah, I'd have to get tested like every 3 or 4 weeks or so, but still it was a nice experience.
So you just mostly just film. Do you guys just film your own shit, or have like a cameraman? This is kind of off topic, not one of the questions.
We film it, or we have one of our photographers film it. So we have quite a few studios that we either work out of, or we just do our own like amateur stuff. But amateur is one of the highest searched categories, so we figure, you know, might as well go where the money is.
Yeah, I mean, people do seem to like that. I mean, that's kind of like the whole thing with like cams and stuff. Is people just like that like gritty, realistic nature. You know, it's something I don't know. I think it just feels more realistic for some people, I think. I mean, I was never one who really got into that, but, you know, whatever. I don't know if this really is applicable to you, considering you kind of seem to manage your own shit. But one question someone asked is how the industry treats women. And so I figure, I mean, I guess you could probably, I'm assuming you've kind of worked more in the industry, like capital I industry, but you kind of do your own thing now. You probably can touch on both sides of it. Obviously, I'm assuming your boyfriend treats you fairly well.
Yeah. When you work for yourself, it's always a positive industry. When you work for producers, okay, so this is where I have an issue with producers, is they go out and they find young, impressionable 18-year-olds that don't realize that they're not going to make anything off there's no royalties. You know, they get paid one time and then they own zero rights to the video. So if they decide one day that they don't want to be in porn, they can't take it off the internet, which I have a huge problem with. And so I'm always advocating, like, I understand that you may be making a little bit more money off of that, but you're only going to make it one time. You can never take it off the internet, and you're never going to make royalties off of it. And if you even try to get it taken off or even message them, they're not going to listen to you. Like, they don't care. Even if the video is never watched ever again, they don't care. So, and you know what? That's their fault for signing contracts. Their family should have taught them not to sign contracts.
I mean, that's a contract law. That's
you're 18 now. You know, that's
IP. That's property rights. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's really, honestly, they're totally legally covered. But I've also heard the horror stories of rape and, you know, coercion or whatever, like from famous porn stars and such. But I'm only, like, I can only speak for myself at that point. That I've had an okay experience. I did a couple of videos with producers, and I don't prefer it. I'd rather own the video and, you know, make money off of it. I don't want somebody making money off of me.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really, I don't really get why, honestly, people would go either way. I mean, I guess maybe for distribution, I don't know. I mean, if you want to touch on the money side of things, if that really makes a difference one way or the other, have you noticed more money going solo or the other way, or, you know, going?
Oh, way more. Oh, yeah. Well, no, the one thing that was good about working with a producer is that I got more exposure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. So I didn't know. I mean, I guess maybe it'd be good for starting out, but I mean, once you have made a somewhat of a name for yourself, I guess maybe, I don't know. Because, I mean, it'd almost be a no-brainer to do it yourself. I mean, yeah. I mean, how much distribution do you really need, I guess? I don't know.
It's a couple time thing. Like, if you could do a couple of professional videos with, like, really well-known porn stars, like, just leave it at that and do your own, like, thing from there on. That's as much popularity as you need, really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess unless you're trying to be, like, huge. I mean, I guess I can understand it then. But, like, I mean, I guess that's what, I mean, I say that, but I guess there's probably a lot of big money if you do get huge. So if you stick with the big dogs, yeah. I guess. But I mean, at the same time, I think not that I'm trying to go into your specifics, but I think the money is probably fairly good. I mean, people like that generally. So yeah. I mean, I don't know that, and like you said, it does give yourself more freedom. You know, it's very much the entrepreneurial spirit. I consider myself an agorist, so I kind of respect that. Yeah. So, you know, having your own business is generally always preferable. Like, yeah, I mean, it would be great, to make a bigger name for yourself, maybe make more money, but at the same time, it's well, you even said you make more money going solo than you did going through others, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, because I can make custom videos for people and then delete it.
Yeah, then you probably, assuming, I don't know your business model, but I'm assuming it's recurring money too. You probably have like subs and stuff like that. So, so yeah. One other thing I want to get into is I don't think a lot of people know shit about dominatrix. So I don't know if you want to just touch on that a little bit and we can talk about it. Just kind of interested because I don't think really anyone. I mean, people just think of a chick in leather beating the shit out of them. I mean,
I mean, that's part of it if they want it.
Yeah.
A lot of it's online. Most of it's online, like FinDom, like financial domination. Just there's ways that people actually like being like treated like shit and having somebody feel like, some hot chick is using them for their money, like kind of like a cuck, I guess. But then there's also people that are like professional, like lawyers or, just anybody in a professional field where they're like, okay, I really need somebody to encourage me to do something. So I'm going to pay this chick to be like, listen, if you don't fucking get this paperwork done, or you don't fucking get this done, or you don't clean your bathroom or whatever, then I'm going to come over, I'm going to kick your ass. Like, so.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So
it's a motivating thing.
Do you notice any trends? Like, what is the thing that, I mean, because there's, like you were saying, there's obviously a whole bunch of subcategories of dominatrix, so I don't know if you notice a trend of like the normal stuff or not. Is it mostly just people who want you to disrespect them with money?
Yeah. I think a lot of people just want a companion, to be honest. Like, they just want, more than anything, like, they hire a dominatrix to just keep them in line and keep them, what's the word I'm looking for? I had it on the tip of my tongue. Some stability, just some sort of stability in their life. It's hard to explain. Like, it's not always just flogging and whipping. Like, most people are not actually into that. Like, they come and they want that, but once they're ready for it, like, a lot of people are like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with this yet. And so everything's consent. Like, I have to understand if somebody's comfortable. I have to see if they're saying they're not comfortable without saying it. I have to pick up on body language, all of this. Even if I'm in the middle of, pegging somebody, I have to know if they're not feeling good or if they're not comfortable with it, all that. So there's so many aspects that go into, there's so much different kind of domination that I've kind of just jack of all trades into it. Like, a lot of it's been online lately just because of the COVID. But the best way I'd say that I'm gonna give your audience a little loophole on how sex workers get away with doing shit that is sexual, but is not considered prostitution at that point.
Yeah.
Anything you do on video is considered porn. That's the answer, literally. Get their ID. You give them your ID. Swap your latest screening. And you're golden, So everything at that point is just porn. You don't have to distribute it. You don't have to upload it. You can give it to them if you want. Like, you just, as long as it's filmed and you guys are both consenting adults that have been screened for STDs and you're both using protection, there is nothing that anybody can do about it. It's no longer illegal. So
yeah, I've heard that before, especially like I was talking like a stripper forever ago, and they were telling me that like that was like a thing that they got into porn, but then they would have people who would, like, big rollers essentially, who would essentially pay to do porn with them, but then they would never get released. It was essentially just a way for them to hire a hooker, but without having to, deal with all that, which I don't know.
You shouldn't have to do, but I mean, if you got to do what you got to do, you might as well do it,
I mean, it's smart, really. I also, I don't know if you can speak on this. I have heard, I mean, just talking on my ass a little bit, but I've heard I've heard in some states they have way more requirements, so I don't know. But then I guess they would I would assume in the states they have more requirements, and they would just get you for like, oh, you didn't do this test or that thing or whatever. It would be more you, instead of getting you for hiring a hooker, they'd be getting you on some technicality for not properly producing porn or something. You know what I mean?
See, I don't know. I've never even heard of that. I don't think that they would waste their time. I feel like as long as they realize that, like, they're looking more for trafficking victims. They're not really looking to bust somebody for making unregulated porn. You know what I mean? Like, consenting adults making unregulated porn. I don't think that they're really...
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess I could only see that like if you were like just some generic streetwalker and you kept a video camera on you.
Well,
And you
think
got
about it like
busted,
people who tattoo. Like they're not really busting like, kitchen, ink slingers. They're really not. They're not like busting into people's kitchens like, "Oh man, you're not supposed to be tattooing in here." Like, we caught you.
Yeah, it's one thing. People do have this like idea that the state is like this just magical entity that's always going to catch you, but it's like these industries wouldn't pop up if this case. There are hookers out there that work all the time, and like you always see in like like especially like cop shows, that them getting rounded up and arrested. But I mean, if you're real, that I bet you that most of those hookers probably hardly ever get arrested, and you know what I mean. Like it's probably not really even that big of a thing. Like people have this idea that the state is just this like all powerful entity, but it's like it's kind of not.
It's really not, and it's run by idiots.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is.
Yeah, it's run by idiots that are like them. Some of those idiots are run by evil people, but like for the most part, it's not that hard to kind of dip and dodge and kind of move around the state. It's pretty slow moving beast. So I think that's probably a good spot to stop. We talked before this, and I think it'd be kind of fun. We had talked about maybe doing some comics episodes or anime episodes later, which maybe we can do that some other time.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of fun. You got any plugs you want to drop while I got you here?
My Twitter is my first and last name, so Chase Tkach, ChaseTkach, and my Instagram is the exact opposite, Tkach Chase. I guess I could leave on a note saying, fully decriminalize, don't legalize. We don't want our bodies taxed and regulated. You don't want your body taxed and regulated. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, do whatever the fuck you want to do anyways. Like I said, I'm an agorist, black and gray. Find your way to, if you can go straight up illegal and just, move around the state, go for it, just in case if that's illegal, for legal reasons, that's a joke.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely send me your stuff after this. I'll put it in the video description. I'm going to do my plugs real quick. We got the Facebook group, the Liberty Movement Facebook group. We got MeWe. We got a library, BitChute. We just recently, this show, the No Way Jose, I got an audio pod. I haven't got it on all the podcatchers yet because I'm kind of a tech idiot, so I still got to figure that out. But I got it on most of them. I don't think I have an Apple yet. So I don't think we have an Apple and Amazon, which are the two big ones. But, of course, they're like the most difficult ones to figure out tech-wise to get it on there. We also got the email, thelibertymovementglobal@gmail.com. If you want, shoot us an email. We're trying to collect emails for an email list. One of these days, we'll probably make a legit email list, thing. But we're just kind of ragtag, put it together. We're trying to get like a site going, a newsletter down the line. We also got the merch. You guys always see me drinking my alcohol. Today I was drinking I forget what it's called, the Green Monkey, I think.
Oh, yeah, I was looking at that. That looks awesome.
I fucking love them. I mean, I'm not usually one for like sweet stuff, but like pretty good. I'm more of like a beer and whiskey kind of guy, but I don't know. At least it's a beer that's like really high alcohol content, so I only got to drink one, and I'm feeling kind of good. So I like that a lot. I like quality, not quantity. I think that's all I got. Yeah, we got you did mention the merch, so got this. We're actually wearing the shirt today, if you can see it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So my buddy Derek, he's the one who's got that. He's also kind of our graphics guy. So if you have any graphics needs, like you're trying to like do some branding for sure, so hit him up. He'll do it for sure. He's done pretty much everything for the Liberty Movement in this. I think that's all I really got. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good shit. And with that, deuces.